What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Toe Tap Talks. I'm John Vonnie with my co-host,
What's up, everybody? I'm Drew.
and today we're kicking things off with our very first episode. As all you know, free agency's been crazy this year. There's been big signings, some surprise moves from teams, and some teams making serious statements, and while others just are not doing so much. So today we're going to be breaking all that down: biggest winners, biggest losers, and what it really all means going into the next season. So let's get right into it.
All right, so the first thing I want to preface here, I do think there's a couple honorable mentions. There's some teams that have been doing some really cool things. The team I want to talk about that I didn't think necessarily made the best moves, but they had a really strong outing in the first couple of days of free agency is the Washington Commanders. Not only did they attain Okonkwo from the Titans, solid tight end, with Ertz going down late with an ACL injury last year. I think he's a solid piece for Jaden Daniels to build off of. They also signed Rashad White on a $2 million deal. Solid vet who's a good receiving back and really good in the pass protection game. They also got Amik Robertson from the Lions, physical corner, likes to get involved in the run game, 50 tackles in back-to-back seasons, and he's coming off a year where he had, I think, 12 pass breakups, so he's a proven corner as well, too. My favorite move that they had was Nick Cross over there. He had 146 tackles in 2024 and 120 in 2025. That is both solo and assist as well, too. He's a good run support safety that can prove to be, competent in the pass game as well, too. The only reason I don't have them as one of my biggest winners here for the Commanders is I feel like they kind of struck out in terms of receiving options. Terry McLaurin's great, but I think they're starting to notice they need a little bit more star power out there.
Old, bro is old.
Yeah, he's a little old as well too. And there were some good free agents. I mean, I really thought they were going to go after Alec Pierce, and I think Alec Pierce got bagged, so I don't necessarily think they missed out on that. But even guys like Wandale Robinson, who we'll talk about later, guys like that, and all they got, I think, was De'Ami Brown and Van Jefferson. So they made okay moves for at least for receiver, but they didn't get that star power name I think they were looking for.
Yeah, I don't think Van Jefferson's really been as relevant as he should be since, being on the Rams and having that like one season, I think 2022, 2021.
Right.
So I thought the Bears were doing really bad with how many defensive pieces they were losing. And then like they signed like Devin Bush, Kobe Bryant, Cam Lewis. And I was like, dude,
The thing with the Bears too that gets me a little confused, bro, is like I feel like their offense at least is going to be almost like addition by subtraction. Because while they lose DJ Moore, I think Roma Dunze can be the clear alpha, which he looked already like that last year. Luther Burden's going to get a lot more burn when he proved to be good when he got time as well too last year. And then Colson Loveland proved to be a dog. So I think their offense is going to be more well distributed without more out there. So I think their offense in the passing game at least is going to be better. I just think they lost a whole bunch of pieces for sure.
with them losing, obviously they lost Dalman, right? Bro said he wanted to retire, super young. That was a huge hit for them. But for that to happen and then for them to go get Garrett Bradbury, he's pretty young, and like being able to fill in that spot while losing him is a win. I think them bringing in Devin Bush is also an upgrade over Edmonds. Like Edmonds is getting a little old. Devin Bush is a little younger. He's been proven. Also getting like Jedrick Willis as a left tackle. That's going to be intriguing. Really hyped to see how this O-line protects Caleb Williams.
That's the question, because he's been under pressure pretty much every year in his career.
So for my first winner, and all of these, they're not going to be in order. It's kind of just like we're just ranking, our 5 and 5. But my first winner that I want to talk about is the New England Patriots. I think being able to go into free agency with the amount of cap space you have, with Drake May still being on a rookie contract, like they got wide receiver help with Romeo Dobbs with losing Stephon Diggs. Kevin Byard is a huge addition to their secondary. Their defense was already strong going into last year, and they just made it even stronger. Even with the addition of Kevin Byard, they got Draymond Jones, who's, he's a bruiser. Being able to get even more line help for Drake May and Vera Tucker, he's been shown to be one of the, hardest blocking linemen. And all they really lost was like Diggs, Hooper, Josh Dobbs at QB.
They lost Jalen Hawkins too, who I did really like, but they replaced him with the ageless wonder in Kevin Byard. He had 7 picks last year. So he's a little older, but he's a vet, really good presence, and he kind of just is a magnet for the ball. So I really like that signing for them too. And then Elijah Vera Tucker, we can kind of just go on the Patriots right now too, because I wrote about them too. I think that was the reason I had them as one of my biggest winners. I mean, when he's healthy, he is elite. And Drake may need some help. I mean, we talked about Bradbury a little bit about the going to the Bears. He did not have a great postseason by any stretch of the matter. So getting someone proven at that guard position, absolute game changer. Draymond Jones coming off a 7-sack season again. I know he was traded mid-year last year, but he had 7 sacks in totality last year, so good pressure for them as well too. And I think the Patriots were bottom 10 in the league in sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
But since still even going from being switching on to a team like mid-season, Jermont Jones still, showed to be like he was that guy. Being able to work in two different organizations, he's still showing that he is to be that guy. And like as when we were talking about the Bears, how they were like one of my honorable mentions, but losing Kevin Byard, we know they had the most interceptions out of any team in the league last year. And Kevin Byard was, he was in there. He was, how I always said he had 7 picks last year. So being able to add him to this Patriots core is gonna make them really deadly, and they're gonna be contenders again next year. They're
Yeah,
gonna
no,
be
they
definitely
definitely will. I mean, they shocked the world last year with May going to the Super Bowl, and May is a bona fide star. But yeah, no, it's exactly what you want to see with the team that just made a Super Bowl run, bolster the things that kind of hindered them in making or winning a Super Bowl, which was their O line. I'm pretty sure May was sacked the most in any postseason run last year. The dude was running for life. So that Super Bowl, me and you talk about it a lot. I mean, he had zero time to go through his progressions. He was getting pressured on every single throw, even the ones that didn't even look like he was getting pressured. So it's cool that they attacked exactly what they were looking for there in the O line. Also, Christian Gonzalez is going to get a bag. All right, John. So we're going to talk about Romeo Dobbs, 4-year, $80 million deal that they signed. We mentioned they got rid of Stephon Diggs. So them getting Romeo Dobbs was really, really impactful for them. I'm going to bring up a chart here for Matt Harmon's reception perception. This is his player profile. Go check out his stuff. He's awesome. But Romeo Dobbs is a really good in-breaking receiver. He runs a dig at a 76% rate where he wins that route. And then he wins a post at 86% and a slant at 80%. So really good in-breaking receiver that can kind of beat man pretty well. But at least from what we were saying, he kind of struggles to find soft spots in the zone, ranking in the 24th percentile. So good kind of safety blanket for May right over the middle, kind of what Diggs was providing for them. Obviously, I think Diggs had more of a natural feel for like a zone, but it'll be cool to see Romeo Dukes connect with May. I think he'll unlock him a little bit more.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how he performs because as of right now, there is speculation obviously of AJ Brown going to the Patriots, but with us not knowing if that's really going to happen, Romeo's never been on a team where he's been a wide receiver one, where he's been that superstar breakout receiver. So putting him in a position to where he has the opportunity to get multiple receptions, multiple opportunities, he might shine. He might shine more than he ever did on the Packers.
No, I agree. I do think he won't be the one, truth be told. I think part of the reason the Patriots are so exciting for me is because they are still probably one of the only teams in the AJ Brown sweepstakes right now. I think if they do get AJ Brown, him as a two, it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, they're going to be a good pair. They'll be a good pair.
So excited to see how that turns out.
All right, for the next team that I want to bring up, as we said before, me and Drew, we both had the Patriots on our list. So the next team I wanted to bring up was the Carolina Panthers. So this team, they shocked everybody last year. At least they shocked me. And the only thing that the Panthers really needed were defensive players, and they literally went and got those pieces. They got an absolute dog out of Jalen Phillips. They did throw back at him, but they got Jalen Phillips, absolute dog. Got Devin Lloyd, absolute dog. Rasheed Walker. They brought in another running back in AJ Dillon after losing Rico Dowdle, which I honestly don't think is going to be insane for them. They still have Jonathan Brooks, still have Chuba.
Exactly.
And one re-signing that they did that I actually really do enjoy because I want to see him perform so bad is Isaiah Simmons. I want to see him play good so bad. I know, he played good on the Giants for a little bit.
The generational what if.
Them having that core in Devin Lloyd, Isaiah Simmons, Jalen Phillips,
Nick
and
Scott.
yeah, they still have a good defensive core, and now Bryce Young is now on the rise as he was last year. We've seen Tedero McMillan, rookie of the year. Bro had a season.
Yeah.
And Chuba's a good running back. And now we're still waiting to see if Jonathan Brooks is going to be thrown in the mix if he's actually going to be healthy next year.
Like you said, they've got Jonathan Brooks and they still have Chuba Hubbard, who they've got a lot of money tied to. And I think Brooks coming off, hopefully, if he can ever stay healthy. I mean, he was the first running back taken off the board 2 years ago. So
I mean, he injured both. He injured the same knee twice.
I do want to touch a little bit on the defense because I really liked the Panthers offseason as well too. They're one of my winners as well, and I think their whole identity was playing off their defense because their defense was stout against the run, and then truly their secondary is elite. J.C. Warren is a lockdown corner. A guy that
J.C.
doesn't
Warren is
get
a dog.
yeah, exactly. A guy that doesn't get a whole lot of recognition is Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson is a problem. He had 4 interceptions last year and 19 pass breakups. 19. That dude was locked down. So I really like their core. And then Nick Scott, I talked a little bit about too. I kind of briefly dropped his name. That dude's a dog. They retained him in free agency to a really cheap deal, 1 year, $2 million
Oh
deal.
yeah. Oh yeah.
111 total tackles last year. Good run support safety. And then their corners are quite literally locked down. So really like the moves they made. I'm not as high on Jalen Phillips maybe as you are. I think it was a little bit of an overpay, but they were like bottom 10 in sacks and pressure.
I do think it was overpay.
I
will
think so
say
too.
that.
But I think they needed to pay for somebody. They needed the
They
pressure.
need an edge. I mean, especially after losing Brian Burns 2 years ago, they need an edge, and I think Jalen Phillips can be that guy to step up. It might have been it was a huge contract, and
Yeah.
it might nip them in the future, but for their needs right now, I think Jalen Phillips is exactly what they wanted and exactly what they should have gone for.
What I think was really interesting is though I think he only had 5 sacks last year, but I did write down, dude, he had 73 QB pressures last year. So he was getting to the quarterback, not always making a sack, but he was pressuring the quarterback a lot, which is what the Panthers were missing last year a lot because they were stout against the run.
Absolutely.
And then adding a guy like Devin Lloyd, who, in my opinion, was one of Jacksonville's like engine to their defense last year. They got him a
He was.
$45
Yeah.
million deal. Absolute dog. Over 80 tackles in all 4 years as a pro. And he had 5 picks last year, so he's showing growth in terms of being a coverage linebacker as well too. So it's good to see that he runs support. He can drop back into coverage a little bit.
I'm not mistaken. Last year was one of Devin Lloyd's best years.
Yeah.
I
it
think
was-
so, his interceptions, that was a career high of 5 interceptions that he even had a 99-yard pick six. I know it was a career low last year of 81 tackles, single and assisted. This is his first year he was an all-pro. This is the first year he's an all-pro. The first time in his career. And for the Panthers to be able to get Devin Lloyd and add him as a linebacker, it just made their defense more scary.
Exactly. And that seems to be the kind of the recipe they want to use to win. And that division is always wide open. So their backbone entirely was control the game on defense and then let Bryce Young manage it on offense. Ground and pound, short dink and dunks, feed the ball to Tet, move on with your life.
And I think Bryce Young he did enough
That's
last year
true.
to be able to
Yeah,
prove
exactly.
that he can be that QB for the Panthers. I know it's always been a speculation of what if what if Bryce Young's too small? What if he can't really throw the ball and he doesn't have the good field vision? Yeah. Hey, same thing with Kyler Murray. It literally is a Kyler Murray story. And last year, he proved that he can be that quarterback for the Panthers.
No,
I mean,
exactly.
he literally had a game where he threw for 400 yards.
Something like that, yeah. Really like Dave Canales too as a head coach. One other guy we did forget to mention on defense, Trayvon Merritt, over 100 tackles.
Yes.
So they got some players, man. I was really excited to see their offseason. In my opinion, probably one of the biggest winners. Exactly. The only thing I didn't love was that they did lose Godado, who I do think is a big piece for them, especially with Jonathan Brooks never being healthy. I just don't think you could have afforded to pay him after paying Chuba, so it didn't make any sense to retain him.
No, I think being able to bring in AJ Dillon, where you can pay a little less and
Short
just
yardage.
still show some production as a bruiserback, being able to just pound through, those third and seconds, maybe even the fourth and ones. But I still think AJ Dillon has promise in being, the back that they need for 1 or 2 downs.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to talk about the Las Vegas Raiders here. We're going to get the cat out of the bag here. They killed free agency. They went out and spent money. They had cap space to burn, and they said, hey, we're going to spend it. I loved the hire of Clint Kubiak. I think he's an amazing developmental coach. He likes to run the ball. He likes to run in a committee.
Probably one of the best head coaches that they are going to have in a very long time.
Absolutely, yeah. He's a stud. The only thing that does kind of scare me with him is he likes to run our running back by committees, and they don't really have another running back that's competent other than Genty. I liked the Raiders. I'm going to disclaim something here. I liked the Raiders offseason a million times more when I thought they traded Crosby for 2 first-round picks. And not that I don't like Crosby.
Yes.
Right.
They got a lot of help with Max. If they really got rid of Max Crosby and were able to get those rookie picks, they could have gone Sonny Styles probably would have been gone if they gave Mendoza. But, getting those rookie picks that you can keep on rookie contracts to where you don't have to pay them a bag. But, it's going to be a what if. The Ravens are going to do what they're going to do, and it's going to be what if. But being able to get defensive pieces they got Quay Walker and now Nakobe Dean being side by side, Kwity Paye, they literally just buffed up their defense with not even losing anything. They re-signed Stokes. They re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. And who'd they lose? Darnay Holmes? Darnay Holmes?
One of my favorite signings for the Las Vegas Raiders, like you kind of touched on a little bit, was Kobe Dean. He's 1 year removed from an 128 tackle season with the Philadelphia Eagles when they made the Super Bowl run. He had a down year because of injuries, but I still like to think that he's a solid or all pro level linebacker. So I don't mind buying the dip at all. I'm going to go 3 years, $36 million deal. So great signing. Love the Quay Walker deal. He's had 100 tackles in, I believe, all 4 years that he's been a pro. So going to fit perfectly with Dean on paper, at least. I mean, this could age poorly. Quiddy Pay, you kind of talked about a little bit too. I'm a little bit lower on Quiddy Pay. I think he might have been a little bit overpaid. Well, and it kind of like we were talking about it with other teams is they needed to overpay for somebody because they need production, right? So they need some
And
sort
they have the
of
money.
additional pressure.
And they have the money. That's huge.
And especially with Crosby being on the other end, he will have more one-on-one opportunities. So you never know. Maybe he has a career year being across from Crosby. So it could work out really well.
I also want to touch. We could talk about it because it's crazy. Kirk Cousins deal is a 5-year, $172 million deal, but
Falcons are paying it.
Raiders are hardly paying that money. So the Raiders have a veteran QB. Everyone knows they're going to give Mendoza. There's no way they don't draft Mendoza. So being able to have Mendoza in a system with a veteran QB with Kirk Cousins and them not even have to pay Kirk Cousins, I think that's going to be huge. That's going to be a game changer.
And we're going to touch on the offense now that we did a little bit too. They went ahead and brought in Jalen Naylor, who's not a special receiver by any stretch of the means.
They don't pay him.
Yeah, they paid him. It was a 3-year, $35 million deal. I like the guy. I think he was always not asked to do a whole lot when he was in Minnesota because of the talent around him. They had Jordan Addison, they had Justin Jefferson. He wasn't going to be a guy there ever. So I think he's talented enough. We'll chart here Matt Harmon's reception profile for Jalen Naylor here. But he runs a out route at 75% clip. He runs comeback at 71. He runs a dig at 71. Runs a 9 at 58%, and a slant at around 70. So the guy can get open. Good in breaking and out breaking receiver. Does well versus the man and kind of struggles versus the zone as well too. 18th percentile for zone. Not ideally what you're looking for. Can't really find a soft spot. However, the guy can move, and he's at least going to be a target for Mendoza to look at, other than Bowers, because their receiving room last year, other than Bowers, was treacherous. I mean, Trey Tucker was their number one receiver.
Dude, they have what? Trey Tucker, Tyler Lockett.
They got Thornton as well too, who I actually really like for a dynasty picks, but he's 6'5" and can move. That's about it.
I got Thornton on my team. I got Thornton and Trey Tucker on my team.
I'm gonna wrap this up here for the Las Vegas Raiders, but look, this is the Raiders we're talking about here. No offense to you Raiders fans. We're not expecting them to go out there and win their division. We're not expecting them to go make the playoffs. However, it's steps and strides into the right direction, whereas previous years, when we talk about the Raiders, it's always kind of like, what are we doing here? Like
First pick contention. First pick contention. Yeah.
So I like that the offense took steps forward into protecting both Mendoza and Genty with Linderbaum and a couple of other picks linemen that they signed. How do you say his name from the Buford? Yeah, Buford. So they give him some daylight to run.
I really don't want to talk about it because it hurts a little bit, but I am going to talk about it. So my next winner is going to be the Tennessee Titans. I think what they did for having Cam Ward and wanting to surround Cam Ward with players was huge. They got wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, probably a little bit of an overpay. This last year was only the first year that he really was a wide receiver one because of the absence of Neighbors tearing his ACL. He's a good receiver, but they did kind of overpay him a little bit. And I don't know if you want to touch on.
I'll touch a little bit on that because I also wrote about the Titans. It's funny, we have a lot of just similar teams here. I really like the Wan'Dale move. In my opinion, you don't find wide receiver ones in free agency. You either draft them or you trade for them. Like most of the time, that's how you get your one. And that's kind of what I feel like the approach is here for Wan'Dale Robinson. 4-year, $78 million deal. I think that's about market value for what he's done. He's an over.
I'm biased. I think he's a good receiver.
He's solid, man. He's a really good separator at the line of scrimmage. Those slant routes are really, really polished. So really good safety blanket for Cam Ward to kind of develop. I'm going to touch a little bit on their coaching hires first because I loved the tandem between Robert Saleh as a defensive-minded, ready head coach, and then they brought in Brian Daboll, who you're a homer for, you're a Giants fan. But that pairing to me on paper meshes so perfectly because Daboll is a super creative offensive
mind. And they didn't give him a head coach position. He is now the offensive coordinator.
Exactly.
Which is huge. Like we saw his success living in Buffalo,
Yeah.
being an OC,
And
and
you
working
saw
with
him
Josh
take a
Allen.
turn with Josh Allen. So really like that. He's reunited with Dayball. He's had back-to-back 90-yard reception seasons, which is a tremendous feat. And finally cracked over 1,000 receiving yards last year. A little bit crazy that he had barely over 1,000 yards on 90 receptions, but that's a different conversation in my opinion. We'll talk about Wandale here, his reception profile. Dude can run a route. I mean, he's a great separator, 75% on a dig route, 72% on a post, 88% on a corner. It says 100% on comeback. He probably only ran that a handful of times, and then
Some of the most
78%.
underrated routes in the league, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
and then he runs a
And I'm trying to
78.
get that as unbiasedly as possible. There were even clips of George Pickens, not George Pickens, of CD Lamb stating that one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league right now is Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, he
Yeah.
is a problem.
He can run a route, man. He's a solid route runner. Really like his separation. Kind of the same thing as some of these guys we've talked about here. 67 success rate versus man, proven to be a man beater. 77 versus zone is actually decent. I think it makes for kind of middle of the pack percentile, but it's a true over the middle consistent safety blanket for Cam Ward to kind of develop into. I really do hope that they make some sort of splash in the draft because they have the number 4 overall pick, and there's some dogs out there. So whether they take a Carnell Tate or a Jordan Tyson, or they take like a Jeremiah Love, which that's up in the air. Who thinks they'll take?
I mean, their running back game right now is very slim. We didn't really see anything out of Tony Pollard last year.
I like Spears, but
He did. He just hasn't proven, and maybe that might have been a coaching issue. Maybe bringing in Dable might change a little bit, and Spears and Pollard might get more into the 1-2. But as of right now, we just haven't seen much from them. That also goes into the next thing I want to talk about. They did beef up some of their line. Austin Schlottman was a Giant. They signed what, 4 Giants? But Schlottman, he's young. I'm really sad we lost him, but only 2 years, $7 million. Like, they signed him for not that much, and I honestly think it was a steal.
One of my favorite moves that the Titans made was that they traded nose tackle Andre Sweat to New York for Jermaine Johnson, who Jermaine Johnson isn't like a crazy talented edge. I think he's really good. And I think that Andre Sweat is probably better 1-for-1, but they did a true 1-for-1 trade here, which was pretty interesting. He's reunited with Saleh. Kind of makes sense. That's kind of the theme of their offseason was they went and got guys that they know. They got a lot of Giants. They got a lot of Jets.
Which is huge.
Jermaine Johnson.
Huge.
Exactly. And the reason I think they did that is their interior D line is kind of bolstered with Jeffrey Simmons. I don't think they're hurting the inside here. They needed edge pressures. They went and got Jermaine Johnson. They also got John Franklin Myers from the Broncos on a 3-year, $63 million deal. He's coming off back 7 sack season.
Huge.
Yeah, he's going to be a dog. And he's going to get a whole lot of more one-on-one opportunities with Jeffrey Simmons there on the inside as well too. Another move I really liked that they did. They cut L'Jarius Sneed. Thank you. He was horrible. That dude was frustrating to try to watch, dude. When he was on the field, when he was healthy, he just did not look like the same corner that he was over in Kansas City. But for his replacement, they signed Alontae Taylor from the New Orleans Saints on a 3-year, $60 million deal. He's going to be their lead corner over there. He's a big, physical, gritty corner who likes to be in the tackle game. So kind of right up Saleh's alley with 80 tackles in back-to-back seasons now, and 11 plus pass breakups in the last in each of his 4-year careers with New Orleans. So the guy can play.
They also signed Cordell Flott.
I knew you were gonna bring him up.
You saw last year, Cordell Flott was one of the biggest breakouts. I mean, when he was on the screen, he was breaking up most passes, and I know his ranking on he had a PFF ranking of like almost 90 midway through season last year. It was a contract year. Cordell Flott showed that he can be that guy, and the Titans believe he can be that guy. And obviously, with Dable being there, it's going to be huge. And I think Saleh is a defensive mastermind genius. I think Flott and Taylor both being at corner on both sides of the field is going to be huge for them. The Titans, their defense has been their biggest issue, and they've done everything they can to fix that. They even did small signings like trying to get Joshua Williams from the Chiefs or getting Jordan Elliott, D lineman from the Niners. Being able to make these small signings might actually help them in the long run too.
The Commanders 5.5 sacks season last year. I mean, yeah, they really put emphasis on attacking that defensive pressure, like you mentioned. And the big thing last year that was their problem is they had no secondary. Like we were talking about with Flott and Alontae Taylor. I mean, Flott is in my opinion, a true coverage guy. He had a
Yeah.
career high 11 pass breakups last year. What I like about him a lot too is he's versatile. He plays outside. He can move inside, kind of like a nickel slot as well too. I just think he's a pretty versatile young defensive back for them to kind of build off of as well too.
With these Giants players, I'm gonna keep talking about it, like, because I'm a little biased. They were able to bring in another tight end in Daniel Bellinger. Man has a career completion percentage of 87%. Bro
Big boy,
hardly drops. He
6'4",
hardly drops the ball.
I mean,
Hardly drops the ball. Being able to be in New York, still making a bit of an impact in New York while having Theo Johnson ahead of you, like as we saw last year. Theo Johnson, he dropped a lot of passes. There is very rare occasions where I see Bellinger drop the ball. I mean, they signed him for what? It was $24 million. Didn't sign him for a whole lot, and
oh, I didn't
he
write that
is
down.
gonna be worth what they're paying him.
Yeah, and I mean they like we were talking about, needed to see them go get somebody after losing the Conqueror, who I think is a better tight end.
Yeah.
Bellinger's 6'6", dude, and he's got chemistry with Dayball, so I like the move
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, I mean, like Conquo only got signed for 27 mil. They were able to get a tight end that might not be as good for cheaper. It was a win-win in that scenario. Even little additions on their offense, like we were talking about their running back game, like they signed Michael Carter, that might be a good signing for them.
Absolutely.
Hey, he tried to do what he tried to do in Arizona. He did some stuff for like
I'm
that.
messing. I'm playing. I'm playing. He's not going to change your franchise by any means. I think
No.
something to take away from them is the fact that they do have the number 4 overall pick too. So whether it be a Caleb Downs, a Jeremiah Love, or Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles, Jordan Tyson, something like that, there's talent in this draft. Contrary to popular belief with what everyone's saying, there's real talent in this draft. I think it's more on the defensive side of the ball. So like taking someone like Caleb Downs might be a slam dunk hit for them, even though that's a little high, but I think it would bolster their defense a lot more.
Yeah, I mean they don't really have many people as safety. So being able to get a safety in Caleb Downs actually might be huge for them. And I think it will literally just do nothing but be the icing and the cherry on top of the cake for their defense.
All right, so we won't talk too much more about the Titans. We know they're not going to be a playoff team next year. Again, like we talked about kind of with the Raiders and some other teams, steps in the right direction, which we like to see. And I'm really interested to see how Dayball kind of continues to develop Cam Ward, because Cam Ward's got all the traits. I mean, the dude's physically gifted. And then on top of it, he's got the work ethic. He's numerously taken accountability for how much they've struggled. And he's
Cam Ward will be that guy. Steps in the right direction. They're definitely a team that's young and intriguing, but I don't think they're a team that's, enough to be in wild card talks.
we did not talk about, we purposely wanted to see who each other's winners were, so we didn't talk about any of them, and every single one other than like our honorable mentions have been exactly the same.
We'll see. As that being said, our last winner of free agency, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Being able to be almost right there to being a Super Bowl team and losing nobody and then adding onto your defense, the Rams are contenders next year. Like they personally, they're my Super Bowl favorites next year. Like they added Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson to their secondary. They lost Tutu Atwell. They lost Roger McCreary, but then they brought in Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie.
Do the Chiefs hate paying corners?
Yeah,
To me,
it
it's
absolutely blew my mind.
We'll touch on this in a little bit more detail right now. So, to preface all this, the Rams were one of the best teams in the league last year. Definitely the best offense in the league, in my opinion. Like John was kind of mentioning, Stafford played at an elite level, despite the old age, despite the back injury stuff. Puka Nakua, top 2 player in the league right now. But their Achilles heel last year was their secondary. If their secondary was half competent last year, they're holding Lombardi right now, as opposed to the Seahawks. So the Chiefs refused to pay another top corner in Trent McDuffie, and they go ahead and trade him, the 2-time All-Pro, to the Rams for a 2026 first, a 2026 fifth, 2026 sixth, and a 2027 seventh-round pick. So the Rams went on to pay McDuffie a 4-year, $124 million deal.
Wow. And let's just get this straight. He's worth it. Trent McDuffie is worth it.
He's a dog. I like McDuffie a lot.
McDuffie, when he is fully healthy and playing his game, he is a top 5, arguable top 3 corner in the league.
I don't think I'd put him top 3. I can see the argument for top 5.
He's top 5. He is top 5.
Sure. I don't hate the argument there. I think it's a little high for Trent McDuffie.
You also got to remember the
market
right now.
Cornerback market is going to be exactly so. Guys like Christian Gonzalez in a year or two are going to get an insane bag.
But then they also signed Jalen Watson for 51 mil.
Exactly. So their Achilles heel was their corners last year, and they went out and they signed Trent McDuffie, and then they went and signed Jalen Watson as well too to a 3-year, $51 million deal. So they got two really good corners. Now their weak spot has become one of their stronger spots on defense.
Yeah, and then re-signing
Cam
Cameron
Curl,
Curl
yeah,
was huge.
he led their team in snaps last year.
Yeah, and
Played
being able to retain somebody on your secondary that has been available the whole season
mm,
does nothing but help you. And I
a
think
career high in tackles.
being able to sign two top tier corners, they're going to make a run next year. And if they're not holding that Lombardi Trophy at the end of the season, it's probably because somebody got hurt.
So I'm really interested to see how Matthew Stafford plays next year. I don't think he needs to play at like an MVP level for them to be a Super Bowl winner next year. I think he just
Get
needs
Puka the
to
ball.
get Puka the
All
ball.
you need to do, get Puka the ball.
He's proven to be the best goal line fade thrower in the league now by a wide margin. So last year, Devontae Adams had 14 touchdowns, and I think like was it 9 of them were inside the five, something ridiculous. Maybe it was 8, something ridiculous like that. Were inside the 5 yard line.
Yeah.
Sean McVay is an offensive mastermind. Let's get that out of the way. However, I think it is absolutely diabolical that they figured out a couple games into the season that a higher statistical play for them was to throw a goal line fade inside the 5 rather than give the ball to their running back. That is mad. Like that is so wild to me. And
Matthew Stafford, baby.
yeah, the
Matthew
ball placement
Stafford.
on his fades are absolutely insane. And then Devontae Adams runs one of the best fade routes in the league, so it makes sense.
He's coming up, I'm pretty sure, in the next year or two on a contract year. Let's not diminish what Blake Corum did last year.
Like
Being able to come into the league, came from Michigan, wasn't really starting in his first year. I don't think there was really any high hopes for Blake Corum. And like he came out last year, and you would think if he was on any other team, being a number one, he would look like an all pro. Like he did what he needed to do as an RB2. And I think them, like they still have him, and having him, Kyron Williams, Puka, and now they got their defense.
Right.
It's gonna do nothing but help them.
Yeah, can't agree more. I think that they're going to be the Super Bowl favorite. It hurts them being in my division. We're going to win like 4 games again next year, but
Oh my goodness.
the Rams are good. The Rams are
Yeah,
good. We need to say.
the Rams are good, and I will be surprised if they're not holding that Lombardi next year.
All right, so we covered our winners. It seems like we had a pretty similar viewpoints on a lot of them. So that was
Literally the same, word for word, bar for bar, literally the same, which is kind of insane. Like as Drew was saying, like I want to bring this up again. We did not talk about anything before this. We literally had all the same winners. So
Yeah.
let's see if we can keep going. Let's see
our
if we can
losers
keep
might be a
going.
little different, but we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, you guys can see the depressing Cardinals jersey back there. I'm going to talk about my loser for free agency. It's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. God, where do I start? So we missed out on the Malik Willis sweepstakes. And while I think he did get paid more than he probably should have after what 4 career starts, he got a 3-year, $67 million deal with Miami. What are we doing here? We had the Raiders got more for Geno Smith than the Cardinals got for Kyler Murray, who, and I understand Kyler's not top 10 guy, maybe not even a top 15 guy, but he's somewhere within probably like 15 to like.
Kyler's solid. Kyler's solid. Let's not.
I knew more than everybody it was time for us to move on from Kyler in Arizona. However,
He
if
didn't
the
finish.
goal, yeah, 100%, and he had some bad luck with coaching. I think Drew Petzing was an absolute horror story at offense. Let me talk about Drew Petzing here. Let me get this off my chest here. All right. So Petzing's offense, it's pretty traditional in the NFL. However, it doesn't get people open a lot in modern NFL. So AZ has really dynamic pass catchers between, Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, it's on a breakout year.
Wilson coming off a breakout year. McBride is very clearly the best tight end in the league, in my opinion. But my issue with Petzing's offense is there's just no creativity. There's zero pre-snap motion. We were dead last in the league in pre-snap motion. Harrison's banished to the outside X roll the whole game. Like they're just like, yeah, outside the numbers.
Bro did not look comfortable. He did not look
Yeah,
comfortable.
and you have to.
Or the season before.
Exactly. And through college, the guy's a route runner. He can run just about every route on the tree. He was a generational prospect coming out of Ohio State. And I would like to see us use him, move him around a little more. And then to kind of add on to that, the games that Michael Wilson broke out and looked insane, guess what spot on the offense he was, John? The X. The X receiver. And all those games that he broke out was usually when Marvin Harrison was out because they only would put Michael Wilson at the X, even though that's where he proved to be dominant when Marvin Harrison was out. When Marvin Arian came back, Petzing banished Marvin to the X role again, and then they put Michael Wilson at the Y or the flanker.
They literally used Michael Wilson the way that they should be using Marvin Harrison. I truly believe
They
that
just need to move Marv around more. I mean, throw
they
him in
do. No,
motion, let him play the slot here and there, let him play Y, let him play X. He can play every spot on the offense. Just move him around. That's all I was asking for. Give me some creativity with his routes. Don't only like his route tree. If you go and look at the routes on like PFF that he ran, was horror story. Like it was like JSN rookie year type thing. Like it was traumatic. So now that it's ranted enough about Drew Petzing, I can kind of talk about what the Cardinals did. So we refused to pay Kyler Murray. We cut him essentially. So we're paying him, what's it, $36 million to not play for us this year. Vikings get him on a $1 million deal. What I don't understand is if the goal was to kind of just wait for next year and draft a quarterback next year, why not just run it back? I guess you're not going to have a top 5 pick next year, probably if Kyler plays. But Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett as our starting QBs next year, like we are going to be horrible, bro.
I have no words for it. The best QB you could have gotten was Gardner Minshew, and then come out and announce, "Oh, Jacoby Brissett, the dude that we didn't win a single game with, even though he
1
had
and 11.
some
1 and 11.
good game."
1 and 11. Hey,
Hey,
respect. 1 and 11.
my point
This is
exactly.
Kendrick Bourne. I don't really know how to feel about that. I don't think he's going to get much burn. Like we have Michael Wilson, we have Marv, we have McBride. I think he's a solid receiver. I just don't
Yeah,
know how much he's going to get opportunities in that offense, especially with Mike LaFleur. I feel like he's going to get the most out of the guys we have. So I don't hate it. I don't love it. It was a pretty cheap deal. So it is what it is. I did like the Tyler Algier signing, 2-year, $12 million deal, solid running back. I don't think he's ever fumbled in his career. So I'll take it,
and
I
you guys
guess.
do need running backs. I mean, with James Conner coming off an injury, and losing
And Benson
um,
always seems to get
Jonathan Ricardo
overlooked.
and Carter,
Mhm.
losing both running backs that were there to fill in for when James Conner got hurt. Because
I was so happy Demarcado and Carter are gone, though. I can't lie. Watching Petzing use Michael Carter and Demarcado overthrow the ball to Trey McBride or Michael Wilson or Marv on like a 3rd and like 8 would make my blood boil, bro. It was enough for me. 3rd and 8, friggin' fourth quarter, 6 minutes left, and we're running the ball on like a stretch play with
yeah,
Marv and Demarcado. Like, what are we doing here? We hired Mike LaFleur. I think that's definitely the best signing we had. The best thing we did all offseason, offensive-minded head coach with this offense, I think makes a whole lot of sense. And we've got some guys. I mean, Will Johnson on defense proved to be a solid corner when he can stay healthy. Walter Nolan, really really good interior D lineman as well too. We still have Josh Sweat, who's an absolute stud. Buda Baker's aging, but he's still fantastic as well too. We did lose Jalen Thompson, who not too happy about losing him, but he moved on. And then I think we still have Taylor Demerson as his replacement. So we've got some solid guys out there. Denzel
yeah,
Burke didn't look bad last year either, as well as Max Melton when he was on the field looked pretty good as well too. So we've got some guys out there, probably 2-3 years that
yeah,
now maybe be competent. I don't
yeah.
go Cardinals,
I
baby.
Yeah, I think the strongest point about the Cardinals is their defense. Even though you guys lost Campbell and Tomlinson, I don't think those were huge losses. Being able to add some of these pieces, I really do like how you guys re-signed Collier, LJ Collier. I'm glad you guys made that re-signing. The Cardinals just
It's
don't
not
have a
a,
QB room. They didn't get anything for Kyler Murray. I don't know what they're doing. It seems like they're trying to get that first pick again next year.
they are 100%. We want in the sweepstakes for the number 1 pick next year, which if that's going to be the route, at least there's a direction. Hey, we're going to tank. Whatever. We're going to suck for another year. I'm going to kind of wrap up this Cardinals segment here, but essentially, Cardinals are very clearly in a rebuilding phase here, which I'm fine with. At least it's a clear direction for us to take. If they go ahead and somehow reach on Ty Simpson, we'll lose my mind. Please go get Ruben Bain if he's available. You have to go take Ruben Bain or David Bailey. It's those two or nothing, in my opinion. It's those guys. Like those are the guys. Maybe you trade.
There's talks with the Jets trying to get Ty Simpson.
It would be something.
Anyway, we're gonna talk about that in a different episode.
Absolutely.
Once the draft is over, we will talk about that in a different episode.
Wrap it up. That's pretty much everything I got for Arizona. Michael Bidwell, please sell the team. Thank you. And
So going on to one of my losers that I was on the fence about putting as a loser, the Detroit Lions. So with the Lions, their defense has always been their weak point. It has always been something that has made them lose, next to like Jared Goff not performing in playoffs. But the Lions, their defense has always been their weak point, and they did nothing. They got Roger McCreary, which is like, okay, They got DJ Wanham, which is another okay signing. Bro, how do you let go of Alex Anzalone, bro?
And Amico,
They got rid of Anzalone. They got rid of Muhammad, Roy Lopez. Like, I don't know how you're getting rid of these defensive players when you know defense is
Robinson
your weak
to
point.
the Commanders, like they lost
Yeah,
some.
Swarm. They got rid of Monty, which Knuckles and Sonic were they look like the strongest running back duo in the NFL.
And they were 100%. There's not a better duo in the league than I
And
think.
then they try to replace him with Pacheco.
And on top of it, you've got
Pacheco?
Blitzing as your offensive coordinator now.
Yeah, I don't.
We
I
just
don't
went on a rant about how
yeah.
unfruitful and zero creativity his offense is. The Lions' offense in the last
Mm.
4-ish years has been the most creative, dynamic offense in the league. And then you're replacing him with one of the most static offensive coordinators in the entire league in Petsing. Excited at all.
Jared Goff, like you could look at the stats. Jared Goff has been the most consistent quarterback the last 2 years.
Yeah, when he plays in a
Like
dome, dude, he doesn't miss.
the only re-signing that they really made I actually liked was they re-signed Brock Sin, but even then, like their secondary, I feel is still pretty weak. They got rid of their best linebacker, Anzalone. He's a dog, and when he's on the field, being able to the pressures, the pass breakups, like he has a presence on the field, and they just moved away from him, even though they know that defense is their weak point. That is what did it for me to have them as one of my losers.
Next team we're going to be talking about is the Chicago Bears. I think John had this as an honorable mention as a winner. I just feel like they lost a lot on defense. They lost Sherman Evans, who had taken a step back. They lost CJ Gardner Johnson. They lost Kevin Byard, who I think is going to be a kind of a big one for them because he was a ball magnet, dude. 7 picks last year. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I think that's huge for them. They lost Jaquan Brisker. While he is known to be a little bit of an idiot, he was a solid corner. He'd make very brutal mistakes that would cost them some games at times, but corner, he went to Pittsburgh. On the positive side, like we were talking about, they did lose DJ Moore, so that can be looked at as a negative. That one I'm more on the fence about because I think that's going to be more of an addition by subtraction because of the pieces that they have with all the weapons they have on offense. With
Like
Adunze as well too. They did at least get Kobe Bryant from Seattle, who I think is a pretty underrated corner as well too. $3 or $40 million deal. So losing Brisker, at least they kind of have something there as well too. And then they traded for Garrett Bradbury, who you touched on earlier, and you mentioned that as a positive. I'm more on the fence that that's a negative, but I don't know.
new environment. New environment.
Maybe he'll play a little bit better, but he didn't look good in the playoffs. He didn't look good of most of last year. I would imagine they're going to probably target some sort of defensive pressure here in the draft because this draft has a lot of edge talent, even late throughout the draft. So I think they'll pair with some edge talent to kind of go along. Montez Sweat, I think they have the 25th pick. I'm not too low on them. Like they're probably like they barely made my cut. I just think they lost a lot of guys on defense. I do have a lot of faith in Ben Johnson, so I still think they're going to be a playoff team next year. Ben Johnson is one of the best coaches in the league, and he seemed to kind of create chaos with their defense last year. I think they had 33 turnovers. And then they were bottom 10 in most defensive categories other than turnovers. So I think a team that lost a good amount of players on defense and one of the guys that had that many turnovers with 7 kind of makes me a little weary.
Yeah, and that's my only thing about why they're not a loser for me is even though they lost all those defensive pieces, they were able to fill in those gaps. They brought in guys, if they weren't as good of players, they still were people that, with Ben Johnson effect, bro. Like they brought in guys who are not better, but they're either just as good, if not just a little bit worse. Kobe Bryant's young, and I think he's shown some promise with the Seahawks. That's what set them apart for me. All right, so that leads us into one of my losers. They've been a big breakout team, and it just seems like they didn't do anything in free agency, and that goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know how you get into the playoffs being a breakout team. You don't have a first-round pick this year, and all they did was sign Chris Rodriguez. Don't get me wrong, Chris Rodriguez, he's young. When he plays in his games, he gets 4.5 yards per carry. But that was last year. He had 4.5 yards a carry. He gets like 38.5, 40 yards a game. But like he's been a backup his whole career. So this just plays into question whether they're gonna start Chris Rodriguez or start Tootin or play them interchangeably.
I think Tootin's the better back between the two.
Chris Rodriguez isn't bad. I just think after losing Etienne's been a workhorse. He is volume. He has carries out the ass. I mean, he averaged 65 yards a game. You can't really complain with that out of a running back. As we mentioned earlier, like they lost Devin Lloyd coming off arguably his best year of his career. Then they traded for Greg Newsome just to let him walk. So Greg Newsome, 25 years old, They let him walk after trading for him.
I mean, they moved Travis Hunter over to full-time corner now, so
Mhm.
maybe that was why, but I still don't understand.
Greg Newsome did come off one of his worst seasons. I mean, he had 56 completed passes on him with a 63% completion rate. That's just not something you want to see out of a corner. He also did move from Cleveland to Jacksonville, two totally different places. And now he's in New York. He says he's comfortable in New York and he wants to remain in New York until he retires. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. I just think losing Lloyd and losing Greg Newsome and losing while only signing Chris Rodriguez, they re-signed Dennis Gardeck. He's 31 years old, but he just came off having a career high of 48 tackles, assisted and solo, 12 QB pressures, but he only played 60% of the snap counts. It's going to be interesting. Travis Hunter is now a full-time corner, so that puts a lot of pressure on BTJ. Let's see what Parker Washington does for a team that showed a lot last year, didn't do anything for agency.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they just didn't do anything like you kind of mentioned. I do think their offense, aside from running back, is in a good spot. They have talent. I mean, they've got Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr. I think they are going to throw Hunter in for like gadget plays. Definitely not like full-time receiver reps anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. They just said like a couple days ago that he's going to be full-time corner. They like
Yeah, that's what
fully announced
they say,
that.
but he's a dynamic player. I would imagine that they'll at least get him a couple gadget plays, if not a couple times a game, a couple times a year or something
Yeah,
like that. It's crazy to me because I thought he'd be a better receiver than he would be corner.
yeah,
But I guess I was wrong. So it'll be
yeah.
interesting to see how he does as a full-time corner as well too. And like you said, losing Devin Lloyd, I think, is the biggest problem there. I mean, you lose one of your anchors on defense, and it'll be interesting to see how Trevor Lawrence takes a step after this last year because this was definitely his best career year, and he's kind of been that guy for a while that always had all the tools, all the prospect profiles to be a generational quarterback, but never quite put it together for a full season. There was always flashes, like there was the comeback against the Chargers, there was his back half of the year last year, but those first 8 games were pretty. But there were some times you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how his following year kind of shapes out to be.
Yeah, I mean, not having a first round pick this year is huge. This next class is a very defensive heavy class. And not having a first round pick and knowing you don't have a first round pick, and the only thing you do is go and get Chris Rodriguez, that's just huge, man. That's a huge hit. And I want to see if they do more. Free agency's not over yet. So let's see if they do more before drafts. He
Speaking of
has
teams losing people, I'm going to talk about a team here that lost a lot of people. We're going to
might be
talk.
the same team I have. Might be the same team I have.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens here. Start with the obvious. They lost a whole bunch of players. They give up, first and foremost, they give up way too much for Max Crosby, and then somehow got out of it for an injury. They won 100% of his physical.
Mhm.
I think that was only because they went on to sign Trey Hendrickson to a 4-year, $112 million deal, which I think is a good signing for them, especially that they didn't have to give up 2 first-round picks to get a really good edge rusher. I do think Trey Hendrickson is worse than Max Crosby, obviously, but not having to give up 2 firsts or paying somebody in free agency that's slightly worse, yeah, no brainer. I think it's insane that they got out of that deal, to be honest. But back-to-back 17 and a half seasons for Trey Hendrickson. In the previous 2 years, he did struggle last year with only 7 games played, and he only had about 4 sacks last year. But yeah, like I said, I'd still always rather overpay for a little bit for a pass rusher than give up 2 firsts for a generational one in Crosby, in my opinion. But they lost John Harbaugh to the New York Giants. They lost Tyler Linderbaum to the Las Vegas Raiders. That completely reset the center market. So not only do they not have all pro center, it's hard to go get one now because they all want more money. They lost Keaton Mitchell to the Chargers on a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. That doesn't look like a lot, but he's fresh off an ACL injury. He still looked really explosive like he did pre-injury. And the guy has a career 6.3 yards per carry average. The guy is explosive, 9.7 yards per reception. Like the dude, he is lightning in a bottle. So he leaves second string running back to quite literally Justice Hill. They do still have Derrick Henry, so I'm not concerned about their running back room by any means. But he
Mhm.
even threat and his pass pro is very, very suspect at times.
He's getting old. Derrick Henry's getting old.
Yeah.
He's not shown the explosiveness that he's shown in the past.
Yeah. He's
People
there.
can actually like take him down. So the Baltimore Ravens, they were tied with one of mine, and I wasn't going to talk about him. I want to see if you were going to talk about him, so I'm glad you're talking about him. They gave us everybody. They gave us everybody. All pro Patrick Ricard, probably one of their biggest hits on offense. That and Isaiah Likely, that was huge. And they lost DeAndre Hopkins, who he didn't do much, but he was enough for what they needed him to be.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Um,
the likely move here for a second, because this is actually pretty interesting. So they lose not only likely to the Giants on a 3 or $40 million deal, who proved to be solid when he got opportunities
yes, yes,
and when he was healthy. So they also lost their other tight end, who is Charlie Kolar, who wasn't anything
yeah.
special. He got 3 year, 24 mil with the Chargers, but that leaves their tight end room to quite literally Mark Andrews and nobody else. So their tight end room is very slim right now for an older tight end. Solid at run blocking, but he's taken a step down in pass catching at least. They also lost Draymond Jones to the Patriots on
That is
a $39 million deal. They just traded for the guy. They just traded for him. Like you kind of were mentioning with Newsom, like they just exactly, and they lose him. So he's coming off a 7 sack season. They lose him. They do at least get Trey Hendrickson, and they
yeah.
also get Jalen Hawkins from the Patriots on a 2 year, $10 million deal. I actually kind of like that move as well for them, who's coming off of a career high in tackle as well too. But they also lost Ardarius Washington. He's a safety for them. He was hurt most of the year with a torn Achilles. However, the last season he was healthy, 64 tackles, 8 pass breakups, solid coverage safety that can get involved in the run game as well too. They lost Loey Gilman to the Chargers, another safety, 68 total tackles and 6 passes defended last year. They lost some guys, man, and they still have Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, they lost out too.
Best punter in the league, arguably all pro punter.
Yeah, so they lost a whole lot of guys. I still think they're going to be competent, but their division is hard, dude. I mean, they've got the
It is
Bengals,
hard.
who are always up there as long as Joe Burrow can stay healthy. And then the Steelers just got Michael Pittman and they got Rico Dowdle. Two issues for their offense was chain movers, and Rico Dowdle and Michael Pittman are chain movers.
And I will say with the Ravens with losing Linderbaum, they did sign John Simpson, which isn't a bad signing at all. It's not Linderbaum, but it's something. They were tied with one of my losers. The only reason why I am on the fence about them is because they signed Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah,
Because Trey Hendrickson has a lot of upside.
right, and I think that saves them because if the Crosby trade would have held up, I think that the Baltimore Ravens are the biggest losers of free agency because not only would they have lost all those players, but they also wouldn't have had a first round pick until 2028. So they'll continue to hash it out in that AFC North division because that division always seems to come down to the last like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
that
It's
play.
competitive, man. It's competitive.
Yeah, right. But I do think they're very easily behind the Bengals in that division now. I think they're an argument can be made that they're behind the Steelers as well too. So depending on what the Steelers do at QB, obviously.
Only reason why I really think like that division is competitive is because of those two teams. Bengals not really done much since making their playoff run, and the Browns are going to be the Browns, bro. They're not.
Yeah, Browns will be Browns.
Browns are going to be the Browns.
Okay. All right, who you got, John?
Speaking of losing people, for my fourth loser was the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers, they lost two of their best linebackers, one of their best linemen, and who they signed? Javon Hargrave and Benjamin St. Just. That's it. But who they lose? Rashawn Gary, Malik Willis, Romeo Dobbs, Rasheed Walker, Quay Walker, Elgton Jenkins, Emmanuel Wilson, Trayvon Diggs, Nate Hobbs, and they just lost Dontavion Wicks. Their receiving room is not there. Like, it's not there.
Like Matthew Golden doesn't pan out, dude. They're looking rough, man.
Losing Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker is kind of huge. And you just lost Trayvon Diggs, who you just got from the Cowboys. And then you're losing Nate Hobbs. Like, you're already losing your secondary. And then you lose edge rushers, you lose your linebackers, you lose one of your best linemen in Rasheed Walker, and they lost Emmanuel Wilson. I know they have Josh Jacobs, but him and Emmanuel Wilson, they were a good combo. Emmanuel Wilson was able to pick it up when Josh Jacobs got injured last season. You lost two receivers that showed real promise. Matthew Golden didn't do much last year. Christian Watson isn't bad. I just don't think he's wide receiver one good.
And that's kind of my issue with Matthew Golden as well too, is he didn't show enough for me to be like, yeah, he's gonna be our one,
And everyone thought he was gonna be that guy. Like,
he was a first round.
I thought he was gonna be that guy.
Their offense is going to rely on Josh Jacobs heavily, and then once Tucker Kraft comes back, he's going to be their number one pass catcher.
Josh Jacobs is still elite. Like, let me get that out the way. Josh Jacobs is still elite.
Yeah, and Tucker's top 5 tight end.
I would say he is a top 3 tight end.
3, huh? I'd say 5. Sure, 3 might be hard.
It's hard when you're thinking about like Trey McBride and Powers, but like Tucker Kraft was a top tier tight end last year.
He was healthy 100%. Yeah, he looked elite.
But yeah, man, losing that many people, and then the only people you can really sign is Javon Hargrave and Benjamin St. Just.
Yep.
Like Javon Hargrave, he's getting old.
God, yeah, I feel like we've been talking about him forever.
Like you're gonna replace Rashawn Gary with Javon Hargrave.
So yeah, Javon Hargrave is 33 years old, guys.
Like he's old. I don't know. Now your secondary is non-existent.
Yeah, and that was kind of
Your
their
secondary is non-existent.
really big issue with them last year too, was that
Mhm.
their front seven was good because they had guys like Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons when he was healthy. So you had pieces.
That is another thing. So they went and got Michael Parsons, and they had all of these people on the line for Michael Parsons, having Rashawn Gary, having Quay Walker behind him. Like he had help, and then you're stripping all of that away. Like I thought you were supposed to build around Michael Parsons, and now you're taking away everybody on defense.
And they don't have a pick
Like
this year or
the
next year.
Packers,
I don't have one next year either, huh?
the Packers have literally put themselves in a position to where they've shown to be a good team. Jordan Love has shown to be a good QB. It doesn't seem like they're building. It seems like they're regressing.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. I'm going to build on that. We're
Really
going
want
to
to
build
hear?
on that Micah Parsons talk there because the next team that I'm talking about was involved in that Micah Parsons trade. I'm going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys here because I don't know what the hell they're doing. The Cowboys, to me, had a really confusing offseason because it just kind of feels like the last few years they're stuck in no man's land, right? They're not good enough to compete for a title, but they're not bad enough to be a top 10, top 5 pick. Their talent on their team doesn't make sense to me. So their best move, in my opinion, this year so far was Jalen Thompson from the Arizona Cardinals on a 3-year, $33 million deal. I think he's a stud. He's got over 95 total tackles in 4 of his last 5 years. Not a strong coverage defender, but an absolute beast in the run game. They traded a 4th-round pick for Rashawn Gary, who also posted that. I don't know if you saw this, but like the week of free agency, Rashawn Gary posted on his Instagram that he was getting released from the Packers.
Yeah.
And then the Cowboys went and traded a 4th for him. I can't wrap my mind around that. The guy said openly he was going to get dropped, and then you went and traded for him. And then he came out in his story. He's like, oh, yeah, no, I got
Keep
hacked.
doing your thing,
I got
Jerry.
hacked, man. I got hacked.
Keep doing your thing, Jerry. That's all I gotta say about the
For
Cowboys.
real.
Keep doing your thing.
Gary came in last year. He had 7.5 sacks the last 3 years. This year, however, his efficiency and like his win rate, when you actually go down and look at how much he's winning his one-on-one matchups, it's gone down every single year since he peaked in, what was it, 2021. They kept Kenny Clark over Osa. Osa was traded to SF for a 3rd-round pick. I just don't understand that at all. I think they were just trying to attach like the name value to Kenny Clark and, oh, let's retain Kenny Clark. Osa was better last year. Clear cut. He was better. They saved $4.75 million. So good job, Jerry. So they could have gotten the same value, in my opinion, for Clark because he has more name value. I think they might have been able to trade him for like a 4th. So it just didn't make sense to me that they did that. They also placed a $5.76 million tender on Brandon Aubrey. He's openly said his agent, he wants $8 million.
Yeah, I mean he's worth it.
And that's what I was going to say. He's worth it. Like, Jerry, what are we doing here? You're
Just
going
throw
to say
a blank check, dude. Brandon Aubrey,
a blank check because he has a kicker. But like the guy's asking for $2 million more, and like the amount of offense that you guys have gotten off of Brandon Aubrey, like every time you pass the 50, it's 3 points.
Brandon Aubrey's the best kicker in the NFL.
But all I'm going to say for the Cowboys is they better not miss on those Packer picks because they have the 20th overall pick this year, and then they have the 27th pick in a loaded draft next year for the Packers. And the Packers,
Next year's
like you
draft.
kind of mentioned, one of your biggest losers, they could end up having a decent pick from the Packers that year. They have the 12th pick this year in this draft. You know, some of those guys like some Styles that we talked about, the 12 and the 20. So they have to hit on their picks.
Just Styles ain't dropping that far. I'll tell you right now. Sonny Styles is not dropping that far.
Okay, well then what's
dropping
Cooling Down's projected to go? Like 10? They're saying like 9 to 10 range, huh?
Yeah.
So they have to hit on their picks here, or else all this is for nothing. I also didn't love the idea of re-signing Javonte to a 3-year, $24 million deal. Don't get me wrong, $8 million a year is pretty good value, in my opinion, for what he brings. He's coming off his career high in carries, his career high in rush yards, and he had, I believe, a career high in touchdowns. He had 13 total touchdowns last year. They're easily the best year of his career. I don't absolutely hate it, but I feel like I'd rather just go get someone like Dowdle or ETN or Rashad White, who was cheaper, probably could have given you similar output. Like, I just don't know how much I believe in Javonte Williams as a talent. Wrap things up here. I just feel like they had another year of just kind of staying in no man's land, like I mentioned. Not good enough to compete for a legitimate run, also not bad enough for a top 5 pick. And that's kind of just where they've sat. When Dak's healthy, he's a really, really good quarterback. They've got really good weapons in George Pickens, who they retained on a franchise tag. CeeDee Lamb's a top 5 receiver.
That was huge. I do like that pick from the Cowboys was tagging GP.
Yeah, I mean, for them, it makes total sense. He had a career year last year with.
He stepped up when CeeDee Lamb was hurt.
Yeah, so the biggest question is going to be when will Jerry, I think, put a comp roster around the stars? finally give up and hire a real GM, maybe might be a good idea, Jerry. Or the likely option is that he's going to continue to be stubborn and they're going to stay in no man's land and they're going to continue to waste years of elite wide receivers like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and elite primes of Dak Prescott, who's been really, really good when he's healthy over the last couple of years. But hey, it's their year though, right?
So hey, America's team, baby.
America's team.
America's team.
It's their year, baby.
So we got to hear Drew's 5. So now we're going to go into my 5th one, which may be a little controversial to some people. For my last loser, I have the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks just won the Super Bowl, right? And they didn't really sign anyone to make themselves strong. Lost the Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker, 25. He's a good bruiser back. He hasn't had a season where he's had less than 50 yards per game. He literally just won MVP. They lost Tariq Woolen, lost Kobe Bryant, lost Boy May. So they lost 3 really strong pieces on their defense. They re-signed Rashid Shaheed. I think that was an overpay. They signed him for way too much money. He only had 59%. He had a 64% catch rate with a career low of like 11 yards per catch.
Yeah, I agree. I think they paid a little bit too much for him, but I think the big thing was that he's so dynamic as a punt returner and then those big plays that they kind of had to retain him in some way and they just traded for him like we had talked about. So it made sense to retain him. I think the losing William Mafe and Kobe Bryant and losing even like Reek Woolen, huge, big pieces of their defense. I don't think Mafe was a time player, but having a player of his caliber as a part-time player makes a difference, like not being able to retain one of those guys.
Woolen and Kobe Bryant were huge losses.
Right.
For you to just go out and win the Super Bowl and then not even like just re-sign the Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker. I know you have Sharp, but like you want Sharp to be that guy. And then they signed Emmanuel Wilson, who, mind you, Sharp just got a torn ACL.
Right. So, I think the biggest thing with Walker to touch on, and he was so underutilized in Seattle. Like we talked a little bit about Kubiak, how he likes to run running back by committees when we were talking about the Raiders, but he really he stuck to it. Like when they were inside the 10, Sharp was getting the ball. Even though Walker, when Sharp went down, he had over 400 total scrimmage yards in the postseason and 4 touchdowns in the playoffs. He had 5 regular season, by the way.
They would use Kenneth Walker to get down the entire field.
He was
and throw Sharp in the red zone. Fantasy-wise, it was garbage. It sucked a lot.
The situation for Seattle being a Kenneth Walker fantasy owner was absolute hell. The guy had over 1,300 scrimmage yards. He only had 5 touchdowns, and it just felt like every time they got to inside the 5, it was Sharp getting the touchdown.
Only 5 touchdowns in the regular season, and then in the postseason, he had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, so they losing Kenneth Walker, I think, is huge for them, especially because they don't have a clear-cut replacement. And then they lost Clint Kubiak. They still have JSN, who's arguably the best player in the NFL, coming off an offensive player of the year, but their defense lost a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. When you get a Super Bowl winning team, you would think that they want to utilize
Witherspoon, who I think is a top 5 corner as well, too.
Yeah, no, that is very true.
And they have he was a second-year player last year, Ty Okada. He was a safety. Started 11 games for them last year, 65 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 6 passes defended. So he'll be a good step kind of in there for Kobe Bryant, which is why I don't think that one hurts as much. I think the Reek Woolen one is the one that's really going to affect them. You felt good matching him up with either the best receiver or the Y or second best receiver as well, too.
Yeah. I don't know if I see the Seahawks as contenders again next year. I definitely see them as a playoff team. I just think having these pieces that you lost whilst getting nobody is it might just be injury in the back burn. But
yeah, can't agree more. I think that they're still going to be a team to beat because they won the Super Bowl. Repeating as a back-to-back Super Bowl champ in modern NFL is
not easy,
especially when you lose big pieces to your Super Bowl. I don't think they'll win a Super Bowl next year. I think they'll still be competent, but yeah, I definitely think they're pretty big losers for this year as well too. All right, well, we're gonna wrap this up. This has been our top 5 winners and losers of free agency. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Until next time, get well soon.